How dare you accuse me of doing the thing that I actually just did to you?
Come on and visit for any occasion. Don't keep patting down waiting. Comics and conversation. Keep the conversation moving along. Keep reading comics, keep your local store strong. If it's hard, then it's a job for the challengers. Comics and conversation, y'all.
From Challengers Comics and Conversation in Chicago, this is Contest of Challengers.
Yes, this is another episode of the Contest of Challengers podcast on the Yak Channel Podcast Network in Chicago. And normally, as you know, as a regular listener, the Contest of Challengers podcast is a comics industry business podcast where two comic book retailers talk about the things that occurred in the industry that week that inform how a store is run. And this week is no exception. It is exactly that. It is two comic book retailers talking about the week in comics and the industry and business. The only difference is it is not Patrick from Challengers and Dal from Challengers. It is Patrick from Challengers and Mitchell from All-Star.
Oh, hello.
Hey, Mitchell.
Hey, man. Thanks for having me back.
Yeah, hopefully this is an episode where people can actually hear you, as opposed to all the trials of last time. I forgot to look it up. I forgot to see how long ago it was that you were on. But now that we're using Zencastr, this is much easier. And you are graciously taking extra time at your store because as we're recording this, it is 8 a.m. in Melbourne, and you don't open at 8 a.m. What time do you guys normally open?
10 o'clock start for us.
Okay, all right. So you had to come in a couple hours early just to do this. So I greatly appreciate it, and I'm sure every single person listening does as well.
Well, wait until the end of the episode and they can make their minds up there.
Regular listeners know that we talk about All-Star often. And you are not only a regular listener, you're a patron.
Yes. You didn't mention the Springhams last week on the podcast. What's up with that?
Oh, you know what? You're right. It was the list of Patreon patrons, and I blame Dow entirely because, I mean, you didn't hear him chime in, did you? No.
True. This is true.
But way to catch that. Nice job, eagle-eared Mitch, picking that one up. Yes, so you've been a comic store owner for... All-Star's been in business for just a few years shy of Challengers, but one of the fun things about it is that even though we are... Oh, man, I did this last time, and I forgot. 15 hours, but 4,000 miles apart?
Something ridiculous like that, yeah.
Yeah, I looked it up, and I had an exact... I literally checked from Challengers to All-Star. Yeah, but I forgot that. So much for all of the fancy lead-in. But what I find amazing is that there are like 3,000 comic stores in the industry, but you run your store very much the same way we run our store.
Very similar.
And it's really cool to have someone on the other side of the world that has the same sensibilities, but also that you can bounce stuff off of. And I believe you are the retailer I talk to most about retailing outside of, nothing entirely. There is no outside of. And like, there's other retailers that I feel close to and that I feel like I have a good relationship with, but I don't really talk business with a lot of them.
Yeah.
I mean, if something comes up, but yeah, you and I tend to bounce things off each other often.
Yeah.
So having you on this episode is just like having Dal, because we're talking about the same stuff we always talk about.
Yeah, that's right.
All right, so we were just talking about a book that we order, and I brought up some questions I wanted to ask. It seems like I don't have this question formed out, so I'm stumbling with it as well.
That's right.
But DC's open order B covers. They call them variant covers. I call them B covers because they're open order. It doesn't matter. Talking to you about how you order, it seems like, once again, you order how we do, where it's not like 50-50, it's the B cover is a handful of extra.
Yes. I think back in the day when these kind of orderable variants first started showing up, we were probably ourselves a little bit more liberal on how many we ordered for the shelf, and it was that difficult sort of situation in, which cover do you put into somebody's order, because at the time it felt like it was really very mixed amongst the customer base about what they actually wanted, without specifying exactly. And then I think once this rebirth stuff started and it became literally a weekly thing for dozens of comics to have these B covers, we just decided it's like absolutely filling just cover A with our regular orders. And if people want to specify getting the B covers, then they can do so, and we fill those in place of the standards. Or in some cases, not that often, people get both covers.
Yeah, and that's what I was going to ask next, is how often. It's very, like, we only have a handful of people that get both covers, and it's not all the time.
Yes.
One of the most annoying things about this is when people every month pick and choose.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, because there's no way to just say, hey, this person gets B covers only in the system that we in our retail management system, in the computer setup. There's no way to do that. Like, you can do both,
but not one over
it
the other.
affects the orders each month.
Yep.
And obviously we want people to be able to have the cover they want, but it's ultimately frustrating when people tell us week of, like, oh, this week can I get the B cover instead? It's like, yes, but you've just created so much extra work for us.
It's we're pretty fortunate. We don't have too many people that do that, but there is a handful of regulars that kind of like to go back and forth. Being that the case, I try to stay ahead of the curve and kind of keep that in mind when I'm doing the ordering, but it does, like you're saying, it does create a little bit of extra sort of headache for us. We actually don't use the same POS system that you guys use, and also the same sort of computer system. So, like, ours is all basically a system that we've created ourselves, which effectively is about the equivalent of 3 different sort of databases of information, and correlating that information on a week-to-week basis takes up an immense amount of time. So little things like this it can be a bit of a headache, and it does create a whole bunch of extra work. But like you said, at the end of the day, it's our job to try to get the people the books that they want. So we're definitely happy to do that.
And ultimately, they shouldn't know how annoying it is.
Yes. As much as we sit there smashing the screen and smashing our hands against their request, no, you're absolutely right. It is 100%, and that's why you have a podcast for, right? Like, so we can talk about
exactly. People occasionally will ask, like, why are you guys always so negative on the podcast? It's so we're not this negative in person.
Sure, that's right. You have to have an outlet, right?
Yeah. And even, like, we're only negative because we're talking amongst ourselves. If we at any point thought about everybody who's listening or could possibly be listening, we wouldn't say half of this stuff.
True. To take that as well, like, I think you guys, and it's something, as a listener, I really appreciate the show on so many different levels, but the fact that I feel that I myself, come quite negative about certain aspects of comic book retailing, and then listening to the stuff that you guys have to deal with, which obviously reflects our situations as well. And I would say that you guys are not necessarily negative, but you're just, addressing these things that sort of come up, and it actually makes me, kind of go, hey, I've got to pull my head in, because these guys are intelligent. They're dealing with exactly the same stuff as us, and still managing to, kind of work their way through it, right? So it is always a benefit to listen to you guys on a weekly basis because of that.
Well, I appreciate you saying that, but what I heard was you saying, I better pull my head in because I don't want to sound as like these guys do, like they hate themselves.
No, always an inspiration. Always an inspiration.
Thank you. So, do you think if DC stopped the A and B covers, how less would your orders on those titles be? Would you add the B cover total back into the A cover, or just order the A cover?
Yeah, the A cover numbers.
Like, is this really?
I would imagine they'd stay pretty much the same. Basically for us, if it happened tomorrow that DC decided to pull those orderable covers, we would pretty much go, cool, that's that done, and people's orders would sort of probably stay pretty much the same, I guess, like their original quantities. I can't imagine a person that was getting a B cover and only a B cover would suddenly just not get that book anymore. They would just revert to the A cover. So our orders would stay, I think, very similar. There's across the board, the book that we were talking about in particular, we do have quite a few orders for the B cover. Compare that to the rest of our DC selection, and the ones that people get the B covers on is like minimal by comparison. Like the other books, we might have one or two requests for variant covers. Justice League, which you would say is a fairly big book, we have, I think, 3 ongoing orders for the variant covers of that particular title. So I mean, it's not a huge amount, I guess.
Yeah, actually, that's about. I think we're right around the 3 mark for Justice League as well. And there's so many of the DC books that we have 0 orders for the B covers that we just don't even stock them.
Oh, nice.
Like
makes it easy.
Nightwing or Red Hood or smaller level titles. But this came up because last night I started doing the July orders, and to keep it fresh, I do it a little bit differently every time. Like I do different sections first. Like I don't just start at the beginning of the catalog, which is now Image, and go all the way through. Depending on my mood, I'll pick different companies to do first. And sometimes that means I have to save Marvel to the very end, or sometimes I need to do Marvel first to get them out of the way. And this month was let's do Marvel now. Like last night I did Marvel and DC, and I never wanted to sell comics less than after doing that. Have you done the July orders yet?
I started on it the other day, and I'm working my way through. I generally kind of I'm a creature of habit, I guess, Pat, and so I kind of prefer to sort of work through because I think if I mix things up too much for myself, I end up just getting sort of lost. And doing previews is one of those things where I think you have to stay focused, the entire time. You can't look away from the screen. It's you can because you're looking at previews and then you're looking back at the screen and putting your numbers in. But it is trying to stay on point there is quite difficult at times. So I'm currently, I think, still working through DC at the moment from the start of the book. So I've still got a long way to go. But having looked at Marvel earlier in the month, I'm not sure if you saw on one of the retailer forums that we're part of. I put up a little post.
Yes,
earlier.
I did see your post. Yeah.
Yeah, about the sheer number of new books that Marvel is producing this particular month. And then on top of that, no doubt what you're referring to is then the sheer amount of variant covers that go along with that as well.
Yeah. I use this phrase often, but I never meant it as much as I do right now. It's soul-crushing. Because you have the most important books that they've done in a very long time in House of X and Powers of 10, which I imagine are going to be huge successes for everybody. And they should focus their energy there. But there are so many miniseries and one-shots and things that don't make sense. And, the annual crossovers where they trade villains. There's 3 of those this week. And then all of the Infinity Warps specials and a Wolverine Blade one-shot, which was clearly done so long ago because Wolverine's in his old gray X-Force costume, and a new Invaders miniseries, and just, oh my god, thing about, and like 5 different facsimile editions, and I don't understand.
Do you think it's got anything to do with, like, you know, obviously this month will coincide with books coming out around San Diego, correct? Am I right in thinking that?
Yes, you're correct. Yeah.
So I mean, normally this month's pretty loaded, like in the past as well. Does that sound about right?
Yeah, I mean, it used to be where the week of San Diego was the biggest product week we get because everybody wanted to get the stuff out. But now it seems that so many of the publishers don't care and bring stuff early or special editions. And now, since San Diego is so much about the entertainment industry, that all the comic companies rush to get their announcements out before the show so they don't get lost during the show, that it doesn't even matter. Like, it doesn't... There's no percentage in announcing things at San Diego if you're a comic company anymore. And, like, now that... Disney and Marvel Disney can hold all of Marvel's announcements to whatever Disney conventions, D3 or whatever they're called. I don't remember, but they don't have to tie it to anything. And it really feels that Marvel is just trying to suffocate all the other companies, and they're relying on the Marvel fans to spend all their money with them. And as much as I rag on them, and it feels like it's a very common topic, especially on this podcast, they are still the vast majority of our sales.
Yes.
So
I think,
there's go ahead.
I was just going to say that, like, I think my terminology in that post was that, choke was definitely the word of choice there. Of, you know, it definitely feels that, and this is the strange thing that, they're obviously getting as much stuff as they can possibly have out on the shelves, because, you know, taking up as much shelf space, you know, gets, you know, people's attention. But what they don't seem to appreciate is that they're not just choking out opposition, they're choking out their own books, which like I'm sure I think you guys shelve your books quite differently to how we do out here. We have one long wall of new releases that we then break up into company. So we have a DC section and a Marvel section. So the books, they're basically, you know, within that Marvel section, that just sort of is ever expanding, and books are overlapping, and basically, like, you know, people are not seeing these new titles or really getting a chance to appreciate them because there's something sort of like right next to it, you know, kind of half covering it up, you know, a week later. It's extremely frustrating and like you said, soul crushing, and you know, it's like it's hard to know. I think, you know, basically what I was sort of saying in this post on that forum was that, you know, for the first time ever, as a comic book retailer, I've always prided ourselves on having, as a store, pretty much every title from the major publishers available for people to look at. And for the first time ever, I'm just like, this is ridiculous. I'm like, there's going to have to be titles that just don't hit the shelf at all. Like, we'll only get...
Yeah, you can't afford to do that. You can't afford the shelf space. And so many of these are such short-term, one-shot special miniseries that where do they go? Like, they're not. If you're going to give me a 12-issue miniseries, I can commit to, like, okay, I will give you the space for a year. But otherwise, when you're just annuals that don't connect to anything or specials, also this month there is not only is there the Invisible Woman miniseries that starts, there's also a new crossover between 3 random titles. First up is Fantastic Four. It's called Fallen Sun. Prodigal Son, S-U-N. Yeah.
Yep.
And that's going to go from Fantastic Four to something else to something else. Like, why?
Why?
Where did these go? And then, did you hear today, they just announced a new quarterly Fantastic Four miniseries.
No.
Written by Jerry Dugan and drawn by Greg Smallwood. That's akin to... Yeah, they reference it along the lines of Cult of Venom. I'm sorry, Web of Venom. So it's like Fantastic Four, Yancey Street.
Yeah. Wow.
Why? Why are you flooding us with, like, Fantastic Four is not selling what we thought it was going to, and it's also had too many art changes, and it's already a little behind schedule. So why do you keep giving us specials and miniseries?
Oh, wow, that's really frustrating. That's a good creative team as well. Like that book, like, you know, those creators on any other book, I'd be really happy to kind of invest in. But as like you just selling me on that now, like that does not sound exciting at all.
No, and it's supposed to be like lighter, goofier stories or something. The Greg Smallwood is an amazing artist. Like we sold a lot of Vampironica just off of his art.
Yeah, absolutely.
Which was very sad that the fourth and final issue was not drawn by him. Even though he wrote it. But the cover to this, which the credit said it was his, it looked bad. And I looked at it and said, no one's going to pick this up. It's like a fire hydrant is exploding water onto the Human Torch, and the thing is wrapped up in a lamppost.
Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, it sounds goofy at least. But, they got that part.
But
right.
I don't know who that is for. No pun intended.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No. Is it maybe is Fantastic Four Marvel's like? Remember when like Inhumans were all the rage, or at least Marvel tried to make them rage? Is that what's happening with Fantastic Four right now? That they're trying so hard.
God, I don't know. So. And then looking at, like, just to shift my ire back to DC for a minute, this month, which is a 5 Wednesday month. So usually you take your normal output and spread it out a little bit, and DC will add annuals in sometimes, or like they would do the Hanna-Barbera or Looney Tunes crossovers, fine.
Looney Tunes.
But, so we still have 2 massive books coming from DC in May, and they're not coming out next week, so that means they're both, unless they're late, they both have to be out on May 29th. And that's Batman Last Night on Earth and the Superman Leviathan Rising special. Why are those on the same day? You have 5 weeks in this month. Spread it out.
Yeah.
And, like, our DC sales this whole month have been terrible because it is spread over 5 weeks. But they didn't, like, all these specials are, I don't know, unless they have nothing else on... I should have looked ahead. I should have looked ahead. I should maybe not be bad-mouthing them. Maybe they don't have anything else except those 2 books at the end of the month. But either way, those are both oversized. I mean, the Superman book is $10. The Batman book is a higher price. And they're bigger numbers for us. So, I don't know. And there's always so many things, like, you and I talked about this before. The day that Little Bird came out, Assassination also came out.
Yeah.
And the week before, there were 0 image books. Image number 1s. Well, it turns out that Assassination is Skybound and Little Bird is Image, and they're basically 2 separate companies, so they don't pay attention to other releases, but somebody should. And it's just, you couldn't give them both the same exposure.
Nope, 100%.
I don't know. It's
I think it's extremely difficult at times. And like you said, like both those Little Bird and Assassination were both great books, and obviously because of the sales battle, I guess I can say it to you in person now and on air. Congratulations once again to Challengers for winning that challenge.
It was very close. You put up a great fight, and I think we both surpassed our wildest expectations for that contest.
This is absolutely true, but that was like a really good example of by not having the opportunity to give both those books equal exposure. Assassination, which is still a fantastic book, for us has not found like a huge following, and again, what kind of got us talking about the sales battle in the first place was just the idea of these great books coming out and just trying to get people to engage with them, but because there's just such a sheer number of them coming out so frequently and on the same weeks, it makes our job almost impossible to kind of point them out to folks.
Yeah, You can't point out every book to every person.
No, that's it. As much as we want to, and as hard as we may try, like it's not so easy. And as well, I'm sure you guys will like it as well. Like, we don't want to also appear to be shills when people come up to the counter and basically just be pushing sort of any old thing as well. Despite the fact that you might have faith in a book, it is can be hard to sometimes to sound that it's that you're not just trying to actually make it fun.
You want to sound genuine.
But this is the thing. We legitimately want people to check out these good books because that's the books they should be reading, right? So
this scenario happened twice to me in the last 2 days that I worked, where somebody was coming up and buying the first 2 issues of the current Magnificent Ms. Marvel series. And we have a display of #1 issues just to the left of the counter, so I can easily point to it. So each time I said, hey, if you like this book, I just want to let you know, Ms. Marvel has a second series, Marvel Team Up, where she's the star right now with Spider-Man, and it's on issue 2, and it's right over here. And each time they said, oh, I just want to try this one. I'm like, I deliberately phrase it as, if you like this, once you read this, so you're aware, not like, oh, you should buy this. I'm not, do you want fries with that? I'm saying, in the future, all I'm looking for is, okay, not to be slapped down like, I'm not buying more. It's like, I just want to let you know, you seem to like the character, there's more.
It is tough. I think it is just, it feels like it's always, the same thing happens for us. It is, I think people's just sort of automatic response to the idea of people lending them help or being in a retail situation where somebody wants to make a suggestion opposed to actually making a sale. It doesn't. I can't think of too many retail situations where that actually comes up, and not to big note ourselves or anything like that. But I think that as comic book retailers, that is something that we pride ourselves on. Is that we just want to give people the information. If they want to act on it, that's great. But it's not about trying to get that sale at that exact point in time. If it happens, it's fantastic. But it's just like, hey, for next time, if you do enjoy, you might want to actually check this thing out, right?
Yeah,
you have information now. You can make that choice.
We're not car dealers where we need to get as much money out of you this transaction because we won't see you again for years. We're just letting you know you can trust us, and hopefully giving you the kind of service and building a relationship that makes you want to keep coming back.
Yes.
And I've always said a very similar thing to what you just said, is that even if I can't give you the product you want, I can give you the information about it, or I can tell you when we'll have it or why we don't have it or whatever. Umbrella Academy is a good example of a book that everybody wanted. When the show came out on Netflix and Dark Horse was immediately sold out, they rushed it back to print, and now Diamond is out of it again. And so when somebody says, hey, do you have Umbrella Academy 1 and 2? It's not just, no, we don't. I'm like, no, we don't. Here's why. And we'll be getting it soon.
Yes.
Not we're bad at our jobs. It is a book that we can't get at the moment.
We love this book. We want you to read it. But unfortunately our suppliers haven't got it in stock. So
yeah. And with Baker and Taylor going away, we've opened up accounts elsewhere. So we use Ingram now. I immediately went onto the Ingram website. Oh, they're out of it as well. But what I love about both of these, what I love about both of those distributors is they show you how many they have on order. Like it'll say, 0 in the warehouse, but 634 copies on order from publisher. Oh, okay. All right, it's coming. Although
that's a good thing. At least you can kind of see those sort of numbers. You're like, well, they're not going to ignore that order.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? That's something that they'll get onto pretty quickly.
Unless they get the weekly Diamond canceled back order lists like we do every week with our invoices. Like, here's all the things you ordered a month ago that we're never going to get you. Sorry. Literally, Mitchell, that we take those lists from Diamond and go to our other suppliers and just go off of those invoices. That's how we order from our secondary suppliers. Is just everything Diamond's like, nope, F off.
That's actually really helpful though, isn't it? That makes that aspect kind of easy for you. So that's quite good. I've never thought of that. Well, I'll note that down.
Yeah, it's really helpful. Have you ever encountered? This seems to happen to us often with Diamond, where will order a book, it's out of stock, it'll go on back order, and then you'll, like, a few weeks later, you have a call to look it up in their system, and you see, oh, it's a green light, oh, it's in stock, our back order never filled, but then you look it up, like, oh no, we still have 3 on order. How is that possible?
Yes, I don't get that. It doesn't happen too often, but it happens often enough to sort of like, what's happening here? What's the breakdown in communication between our accounts and Diamond for us wanting that book? Yeah, it is pretty frustrating. I mean, especially when it happens with obviously something, the Umbrella Academy situation was a little bit of a joke in the sense that effectively it felt like the week of that show landing, when there was or the week after perhaps, where there was the most interest we've had in those books in a very, very long time. And admittedly, we I'm sure you guys did as well. We upped our orders a little bit on the to have some in stock.
Yeah.
And then it really took off, which was fantastic. But to then go to back to our suppliers and find that wasn't available, and we didn't get restocks for I think maybe, I don't know about you guys, but it felt like about 3 or 4 weeks perhaps after.
Yeah, for a while, if not longer. Yeah.
Yeah. So a month later, those books came back in. Thankfully, when they did show up, the interest definitely still seemed to be there, and yeah, but that's not always the case. That especially in this sort of climate, it feels like that those windows of popularity and interest wane very quickly these days.
That book in particular taught me a lesson I wasn't aware of, and Dark Horse had said all along that with the show coming out, they went back to press and ordered and printed what they thought was going to last them 3 years. And they were sold out of it almost immediately, but they were, and this is speculation, they were most likely sold out of it immediately because of Amazon. Because Amazon where does Amazon get their books from? Well, if it's a Dark Horse comic, they get them from Diamond as well.
Yes.
It's like,
that makes a lot of sense.
I never thought we were in competition with them from our own distributor.
Yeah. Oh my God, that is horrifying.
Yeah.
I do not want to think about that at all.
No, definitely not.
It's a terrifying thought, isn't it? Really, like there's just if the demand's there through a bigger retailer, that their potential orders are going to get filled before ours is a little bit scary.
Well, do you remember there was a chain in the United States called Hastings? They were they were mall stores, and they were one of Diamond's biggest accounts, if not Diamond's biggest account. Then they went out of business, and at the point they went out of business, they owed Diamond millions of dollars that Diamond will never get from them. And so they bent over backwards for that number one account, and then they got screwed over, and then we all get hurt because of it.
Yes.
So it's like, so they get all this extra service and all these bonuses, and then they go away and they stick you with millions of dollars. Yet here we struggle every week.
This is trickle-down economics, isn't it?
Yeah.
How it works.
I mean, yes, this is how it works. It's not how it was supposed to. It's not how it was. It wasn't how it was pitched to us by President Reagan in the 80s.
Oh, goodness.
But yeah, you're right. This is definitely how it does work. So for the most part, you get the same stuff we get almost on the same weeks. But let me ask you this. Did you get this week either the Batman White Knight hardcover or the Mr. Miracle hardcover?
We got both of those, yes.
Okay.
A full order?
Okay. We did what didn't.
Oh, what? What happened?
Because, man, this is so dumb. Those books, do you pay attention to every day's new to order lists from Diamond?
I
they give you and honestly, there's a ton of stuff that we get early because of that. Well, those two books were on new to order, and they were on FOCs.
Oh yes, I can see where this is going.
Yeah, so we did a little from column A and a little from column B. It turns out they're not shipping at the same time.
Yes.
So whichever, if you did FOC or if you did one of them came first. So whichever one you did was the right way.
Yeah.
Because we just got it's the split shipment. I think new to order came first and FOC is after. I don't remember exactly, but whichever way you did. So we only got a portion of each, and then and again, we don't find these things out until a customer asks, and we have to say, yeah, why didn't we? Like, when I'm checking these in, I'm like, I don't remember us ordering this low on these books, but even though, like, I do initial orders and Dow does FOCs, and I get the emails, like, hey, here's all the FOC changes, I may not always read them. So I just assumed he made some changes, but when he's as confused, and we have to look it up, it's when a customer says, do you have this book? And we're like, no, we don't. Why don't we have this book? Then we have to do a deep dive into Diamond to find out why. But yeah, it's like, we only got the, I think we got the new to orders, not the FOCs. Yeah, so we have to wait for the rest. And how, so dumb.
It's so strange. I don't get that. Where we've been almost picked up in the past, and I've been very careful about it, is listings on FOC for DC statues and figurines and things like that.
Yeah, all the toys and stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, and so we place our orders on our regularly monthly upload, and for those particular items, and obviously we will change them come around FOC, but then occasionally those items will show up on the final orders, and they're coming up as 0, and I'm like, I'm positive I've ordered these items already. Why are they showing 0? And then I'll go, okay, well, we need one of this particular figure or statue, and I'll put that in. And then just before the FOCs go off, I always do a final check before we send them off on the last day, and suddenly the quantity's gone from 1 to 2, and I'm like, hang on, what? So the initial order has suddenly been updated. And I don't understand what the situation is with that, but it happens quite frequently, and has almost caught us out a number of times ordering extra statues and bits of merchandise that we definitely didn't need or want. Been very fortunate to be able to catch it in the final moments before those final orders have actually gone off.
Yeah, it's such a juggling act sometimes. I'm looking through my emails right now because we recently got an email from Diamond, and we don't have a rep currently. I don't know if you currently have a customer sales rep.
We do, but I'm amazed that you guys don't. That's crazy.
Oh, it happens all the time. And every time we get one, they go away. So that means somebody else has to email us when there's something. Anyway, we got an email from someone at Diamond, and I can't find it right now, but it was basically saying, hey, we noticed that you have 3 separate orders for the same product. Like, you ordered this on new to order, final order cutoff, and in the final listing of the catalog. Do you want all 3 of these orders? And it was a rare occasion where it's, well, yes, we do, because we often, so often things like pop vinyls, if you order them new to order, you get them before they're ever actually listed in the previous catalog. So we take advantage of the previous catalog to do reorders for a lot of that stuff, like the Hasbro figures. Mainly just for the figures. It's a good way to get we're out, these sold well. Hey, we can get some more. But there was one time a guy's like, hey, you ordered this, and for whatever reason, because ordering through Comic Suite, if it's something you've already ordered, at the very top of the screen, there's a tiny little, there'll be a little red number that says 2, meaning, you already have 2 on order, which is very helpful because sometimes I'll forget.
Yeah,
but sometimes it doesn't say that because a stock number has changed or for whatever reason. So one time a Diamond rep did contact us and say, do you want all these? We're like, oh, no, we don't want 5 cases of this thing that we ordered 3 cases of and then 2 cases of. Thank you for catching this.
That's very good. They for all the things that we do say in the negative occasionally, those few occasions where those things start to happen, you're kind of like, thank goodness, because we really would have had trouble moving those extra things, right? So
I was talking to some creators this week, and again, this is a thing we said before, that whenever something is wrong, a retailer immediately blames Diamond. But I've known retailers who would blame Diamond for things that they know they personally did wrong, but because customers accept it as Diamond's fault, they can blame Diamond. And we try not to do that. We try to never blame Diamond until it's their fault. So then we feel okay saying, hey, they fucked this up because they did. But it's not just like, oh, well, they didn't send us our full shipment. No, you just didn't order right.
Yeah.
Like, don't blame them for your mistakes.
Yeah, that's not cool.
Although, in that regard, somebody called on Wednesday and said, hey, do you have this week's Livewire? And I'm like, oh, no, I'm sorry, we're out of that already. And I hang up, and then I stop and I'm like, oh, wait, are we out of it? Because I had just assumed that we had, at this point, Livewire was dropped to club only.
Yeah.
But then I'm like, wait, wasn't there one for the shelf? So I go to the shelf. There's a Livewire there. So I go through the caller ID, call him back and say, hey, this is Patrick from Challengers. You just called us about Livewire. Turns out we do have one.
Oh, that's good.
And he's like, oh, yeah, I'll take it. And then he's like, well, what was the problem? And I said, it was misplaced.
Oh, there you go.
Which it wasn't. It's me lying. So then when the guy comes in and he's buying it, and Dow's ringing him up, he's like, so was it really misplaced? And I got offended, like, why would you think it wasn't? When in reality, it wasn't. I was just wrong. And I think what I'm getting at is, because I answered so quickly, he didn't believe me. But I only said no because I legit thought we were out of it. But then I thought I should go take a look.
Yeah.
Yeah, but just
have a quick look,
like, how dare you accuse me of doing the thing that I actually just did to you?
Oh, look, we all need those little, little white lies every once in a while, right? It can't be helped.
Yeah.
But no, I think you guys are like that's a similar thing for us as well. Like, where if we have half of our order coming through, and Diamond legitimately like missed shipping half of our books to a particular title, we'll let people sort of know that it's the case. Like, oh well, this book should be filled in a couple of weeks, but we don't make a big song and dance about just the supplier and this and that and blah blah blah. And traditionally, the customer normally kind of takes that lead themselves. They're always
because every retailer has conditioned them that it's Diamond's fault.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting, and it's like, well, they did stuff up, but at the same time, they're doing their best to replace it. It's just it's the next step from that, which I'm sure you guys have dealt with numerous times, is when those the reorders to fill that missing stock don't come through for whatever reason, and then you're having to source that stuff from other places. We've had that recently with a couple of books, which was a bit of a dilemma. We had to order, I think, nearly 20 copies of a issue of Black Science from Midtown Comics of all places.
Oh, wow.
Because they were the only... Yeah, and so that cost us a pretty penny to get those back in. We were selling them way under what we were actually paid for them, but it was just a thing of that that we just had to make sure that got filled, because when they went on to back order through Diamond, it's back order as we know is a kind of a limbo setting at best. So we didn't want to take that risk and then cancel those back orders on the odd chance that they might have been filled, because that would have been the worst possible situation.
Yes.
But yeah, in the end, the customers do sort of, you can kind of mention it to them that it's taking a little bit longer. We're trying to track the stuff down. I think when they do actually show up, they do appreciate that stuff has been actually filled. That's for sure.
Yeah, or if somebody has a specific variant cover that they want, and then you get it and it's damaged, and we're pretty liberal with our damages. Like, we'll put stuff on the shelf because, like, if it's got a small wrinkle or something, well, there's plenty of times we'll say, this is sellable, we're not wasting anybody's time, it's fine. But when somebody orders like a 1 in 25 variant cover that we can actually qualify for, and it comes beat up, you have to get them the best copy possible. But it just seems that it's when they replace that one book, the replacement is messed up, and then the replacement is messed up again, and you feel like Diamond hates you because they think you're lying just to keep getting a variant cover, and this customer is waiting week after week after week, and by the time that it finally comes back, they're not excited for it anymore because it's a month ago.
Yeah.
And then
it is a very tough situation. I think that feeling of thinking that Diamond thinks you're lying about stuff. When we have missing merchandise from our order, that is one of the things I loathe most to actually put in an actual claim for. If a statue's missing or action figures or they come damaged or broken. I mean, the DC, as the statues, they're stunning. They look absolutely fantastic, but the quality control on them is not always the best.
And yours have so much further to travel.
Well, that's it, right? And sometimes they do arrive either broken or paint job's not so great, and we basically we can't sell this as a collectible. Having to ask Diamond for that replacement is it's just a weight on your chest, because you're like, man, they just must think you're absolutely kind of just rigging the system. But a lot of the times with the statues, they do ask for you to show photos of the item destroyed at least, so they know for a fact you're not selling it on. But even then, the action figures they seem to be pretty liberal on, and are okay to replace that stuff. But when something's missing, obviously you can't do anything about that. They just have to take it at your word. So it is. It's, I guess, again, for all the naysaying and whatnot we do, about Diamond, when it comes to that sort of stuff, they are fairly good in, doing their best to get those replacements back out to us. That's for sure.
Yeah, and that's one of the reasons I make sure to report every overage we have, even if it's a single copy or whatever. So I need them. I do that so they can hopefully trust me when I say, no, we were shorted this book or whatever.
Yeah,
but
100%.
I don't know if you've seen any of these posts in the Final Order Cutoff group where some people will say, hey, I didn't get these books, or I'm short these books, and they get a reply from Diamond saying, well, your box weight was correct, so we think you got them.
We've only ever had a couple of occasions where that's come up for us, and it was basically at the point where we didn't realize that we had to include overages in our reports, or that we could rather. And then from that point, we were just like, oh, okay, well, that makes perfect sense. If they've sent us a whole bunch of extra something else entirely, and that has made for the weight to be similar to
exactly
what it's supposed to be. We need to tell them that that item didn't ship, but we did get 20 copies of this other thing in its place. So we're very mindful of that now as well. And just like you guys, I think that hopefully creates an element of trust between both us and Diamond, when especially for us being so far away as well. Like we really need to make sure that Diamond kind of is okay to back us when it comes to those claims. That's for sure.
One of the things that we can't do with the Diamond computer system we use is when we're reporting our damages for the week, they ask you how it was damaged, whether it was damage in shipping or damage in packing, or if it was damage in printing. So the issue is, let's say you have 5 copies of this week's Amazing Spider-Man that are messed up.
Yep.
You can't split it. You can't say 3 are printing errors and 2 are packing errors. You can only pick one choice for them. And sometimes but no, it's multiple ones.
Yes.
These have a big line down like this is a printing error, but these are packed wrong. So you just have to bite the bullet and say, all right, fine, they're all packed wrong or whatever.
That's all it is. Yeah, that makes sense.
And just one of my favorite things about that is it's a drop-down menu. When you say, hey, here's our damages, it's a drop-down menu of how it's done. And they always pick printing first and packing second. The thing because if it's a printing error, it's not their fault.
No.
So that's the first choice at all times. I'm like, you guys.
I guess that kind of makes sense. They're probably hoping that people just click on that automatically and not worry about the packing.
Yeah, exactly.
So they can just sort of get rid of that burden, I guess, right? That financial burden.
Yeah. Yep. Or if it's something that you were shorted and you also have to report why, whose fault is it? And it's distribution center. It's always going to be your fault. Who else's fault is it?
No, that's right.
And it doesn't default to it. You still have to do a drop-down menu to then go to distribution center. I don't know.
Who else is on that? There's no one else on that list.
Yeah.
It goes from Diamond to getting shipped out to us, right?
Yeah, exactly. So why were you shorted? I don't know. I don't know.
It's those guys in the warehouse. That's
Yeah, exactly. I'm waiting for it to be dropped down just of like first names. Distribution center: Phil, Steve, Linda, Carol, Bob. Shit, whose was it?
Oh, you name names. That's bad.
Yeah, exactly. They used to have little slips of printed paper that would say this box proudly packed by. Yeah, I haven't seen one of those in a while.
No,
yeah.
Well, are they not using? I heard that they upgraded the actual warehouses quite a bit, and there's a lot of robo packing these days. Is that not the case?
Well, it is and it isn't. We actually took a tour of the facility at the Comics Pro annual meeting a few years ago, cool. And they're still packed by people, but a robot tells you how to pack it.
So there's robot overlords to human packers. Oh my god, it's actually Terminator. This is amazing.
And the robots are really bad at it. Like, how often do you get a manga book at the bottom of a box with a hardcover on top of it? Like, what?
What is with that?
It doesn't make any sense.
I will say the packing for us in it feels like the last probably 6 months has been infinitely better than it has been in our entire time of being open.
Yeah.
Things like that would happen quite frequently before, or oversized books that would be like kind of overlapping on smaller books, and so not only would the smaller book get damaged, but then the bigger book itself would get like folded over.
Yeah, because there's nothing underneath it.
Nothing underneath it. So that would happen. Yeah, and that would happen quite frequently. But we've been fairly fortunate that that's happening far less these days. So our damages, I'm not sure what's been happening sort of in the actual the packing houses, but those robot overlords are doing a much better job.
The whole warehouse is in a warehouse district, and the turnover is so high because you can get packing jobs at any one of these plants. So, if you're not a comic fan and you don't understand what, it's different when you're packing oil filters in like 8 to a box when you're packing all these comics. Who cares if an oil filter box is damaged? So they can a lot of times people doing the packing aren't comic fans or don't understand that there's a level of condition that is care. Thank you. That is necessary when you're just packing a box of widgets that all fit perfectly in one box. I mean, the fact that Diamond went out of their way to make specialized boxes just for pop vinyls with cardboard inserts. Yeah. Although I love it, we got a box this week that was certain boxes were designed for certain things that don't exist anymore. But one of the boxes we got this week just said Batman on the bottom. Like, it was a Diamond box, but it was like, this was a thing that they made for some Batman product years ago that they either still have laying around or that's just what that's called now is the Batman box. The way for a long time, prestige format books were just called the Dark Knight format because that was the book that originated it. Yeah.
That's really
I had another. What was the box had a bunch of loose pops, some T-shirts, and 2 of the plastic tiny Batman 7-piece figures. The black and white figure sets.
Yeah. Yep.
2 of those was in that, but it wasn't like that box was the perfect size for those. Because they were still other. They had what else? We got a statue or something this week as well.
Yeah.
In that same. We had 2 Marvel Select Rogue figures in that box. We were shorted a Marvel Select Daredevil figure, and normally, like this week, we didn't get Kaiju Max. We didn't get any of our copies of Kaiju Max. Instead, we got Tangled, Disney's Tangled Hair and Now #2. But in equal quantities, so you can say, okay, this is clearly what they pulled instead of it.
Yep.
So we just gave everybody who gets Kaiju Max Tangled.
I'm sure they would have greatly appreciated that. Yeah, it's absolutely the same thing. Oh, goodness.
Especially when it was the last issue of the season.
The arc. Oh my god, it's ridiculous, isn't it? I do love like when those mistakes do happen, and it is the exact number of a totally unrelated title. And it's like how does that happen? Like how a totally different company, totally different like there's like nothing correlating, not even similar, starting with the same letter or anything like that. So how does that actually happen? So it's I do always wonder.
It's got to be based off of the stock number they use in the warehouse.
Yeah,
that's a system we're not privy to. Like I don't know. They for a long time there used to be an error we'd get, which it still happens, but it's much rarer now. Which was I forget what it's called, but like every Tuesday night at midnight, we'll get a report that says, hey, here's the stuff that we went to pack for you for this week's reorder and couldn't find. So that we just sent everything else out. It's missing this stuff. And then that stuff usually comes in a different order like a day or two later.
Okay.
Confirm, cancel, that's what it is. Every once in a while we'll get a, hey, this is confirmed, cancel, meaning you ordered it, we said we had it, we can't find it, so we have to cancel this order. You have to reorder it. And there was one time years ago, it kept happening for the Oni book about Rasputin.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, man. I can't remember what it's called. Anyway, we would ask for that confirm, cancel. Reorder next week. Confirm, cancel. 5 times until we said to Oni, why does this keep happening? And they said, I don't know. Diamond has, 50 copies or something in stock that we know of. And so Oni had to call and say, what's up? And then, hey, it suddenly showed up.
Huh.
But yeah, just the whole, hey, we know we have this book, we can't find it. Which honestly happens to us, where someone will say, do you have this book? And we'll say, yeah. And then we're like, I can't find it. Then we look in the system, and it's like, it says we have a copy. So either A, it's misplaced, or B, it's stolen. So it becomes let's look around for a while and see where it could be.
Oh, it is very frustrating when that happens. We have a similar thing going at the moment, an ongoing saga for I don't know if you guys have got that Akira art book, art of and it's this
the guy's name.
Yeah, and it's this stunning book, and it's this this kind of white, Tomos, and a white oversized hardcover, and it almost always comes to us either damaged on its spine or crunched corners, or the whatever it is that they've covered it with. It just gets grubby, and you can't get that grub off. It just
you can't clean it.
And you can't clean it. It's it basically the cover just sort of starts to dissolve when you apply sort of any cleaning materials to it. And this is weeks, every single order comes through, it's almost guaranteed that replacement copy will be as damaged as the previous one, to the point where we ended up saying, look, guys, can we just get a credit on this thing, because we keep paying for the freight on it, and we can't do anything with these, right? And then it got to a point in the past where they suddenly started bagging it. And they were shipping, and which was great. We're this is fantastic. It's shipping bagged. It's coming to us like mint. This is great. This is exactly how it should be. So we had maybe 2 come through in that format, 2 or 3, and then it just went back to the old way again, right? And so, what's wrong with them? They forgot what the problem was, and then just decided, don't worry about it, right? So yeah, very frustrating. It's a great book too, and it just
They had one of those cost analysis adjusters say, if we sell, 1,000 copies of this book per year, and we put each one in a bag, we're losing 3 cents per bag times 1,000. That's not cost effective.
That's right. But this is the thing: the fact that they're still sending us the replacement copies, who is actually is Diamond out of pocket for that, or is the publisher? I imagine it must be Diamond, because clearly it's sort of happening, I guess, in shipping and in packing. So perhaps the publisher's happy to kind of keep these things coming through and not sending them out in plastic bags. Perhaps, I don't know.
That's a good question. I would assume that it's Diamond, but I wonder if they find a way to blame the publisher.
It's very odd. It's very strange. I don't know.
So often, books are printed and then sent right from the printer to Diamond, so the publisher never sees them.
Yeah.
But I mean, that probably not for that book.
Yeah.
I don't know. That's a good question. Maybe it isn't Diamond's fault. See, we're not immediately going to blame them
No.
for everything.
No.
We're willing to give them the benefit.
That's right. We'll work with
We
them.
are good people. Yeah,
We'll keep telling ourselves that.
that's right. Hey, so everybody who's listening has already heard about our free comic book day. How was yours?
Ours was great. Unlike you guys, we're sort of in the start of, I guess, our sort of autumn period. And in Melbourne, it does get a little bit cooler around that time as well. Not quite as cold as you guys do over there, but first thing in the morning, no doubt, like you guys, there's a bit of a line, and people waiting outside at 8 and 9 o'clock. It can be quite chilly.
Wow.
Yeah, it's always pretty impressive that that's the case. There is another store in Melbourne that has people lining up like from 2 o'clock in the morning, which is just amazing. It's sleeping overnight because they do it.
I've never understood that, man.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy, and that's a whole other thing, because that's to me is sort of like the people that go to that particular store because they do a first 50 people in line or first 30 people in line get a copy of each one of the 50 odd books, basically, right?
Wow.
Yeah, but I would imagine that those people that go just for that are very unlikely to actually turn around and look through the store for anything else. It's just people that love to get free stuff, so
Sure.
So it feels like it really defeats the purpose of getting people sort of interested in everything else. Like those people, I can't imagine actually caring at all about the books. It's just that they're free, which is that's a kind of a pretty frustrating thing that we have to deal with each year. That idea that there will inevitably get a large portion of people coming through that are just after something for nothing, and they don't really care about comics as such. I'm still heartbroken. Your post from last year's report and the comics on top of the film. That sticks to me like I can't imagine how bad it makes it feel for you guys, but that is a real like knife in the side of comic retailers everywhere. That's the the mentality of people that do sort of come through on the day. That said, majority of the folks that come through are not that, and they are actually legitimately interested in checking the stuff out. And our day was back up again from a dip in last year's sales. So we're happy to see that we returned to the sort of similar numbers that we had in 2017, which was really great. Quantity-wise, we gave out almost all of our stock, free comic stock, which was almost
That's amazing, because I know the number that you gave out, and we gave out a fifth of that.
Yeah, look, I mean,
we were open for 12 hours. What is your limit for people?
So we generally start with like 6 or 7, and
okay.
I'm sort of like you guys, like you have your stuff on racks that people can kind of help themselves to, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So we have them actually physically being handed out to people. So we have the books sort of up on a wall that they can make a selection from, and so it's just trying to kind of make sure that everyone's getting the right amount. I guess that's our way of policing that no one's grabbing sort of too many.
Sure, that works.
Listening to you guys last week about having a few people here and there, and it sounds like you guys like do really well. That most people are pretty respectful of the rules, but you're inevitably always going to.
And most people are. Yeah.
But you're inevitably going to get folks that try to take more than they're allowed, and this way it sort of it also having that little bit of extra interaction, I guess, as well. Like we're trying to familiarize people with the store and the staff and everything like that, and it's our opportunity, I guess, to kind of show like, hey, the guy giving you free comics is a nice guy as well, rather than just grabbing stuff and moving on, right? So
sure,
we're so that works kind of well for us. It's an extra effort, I guess, that you have to make, but it seems to sort of do fairly well, and it creates a bit of a line, but we've come to a pretty good way of handling that throughout the day. But it felt like it was the same amount of people, but just I guess we maybe didn't drop our numbers as we normally do through the day, probably accordingly. So we're probably giving away more comics throughout the day than we normally do. Our number is kind of skewed as well because we do a kids show bag. Just being that it's a family day, it can be quite daunting on kids to make a choice from this massive selection, and And
Yeah.
obviously, only like a third of the books are actually meant.
For
Yeah,
kids.
so it's that thing of having that sort of huge selection. We've in the past basically made these show bags that we fill with like about 10 to 11, 12 some years, have those basically ready to go. So if you come in with a family with a couple of kids under 12, they get a show bag, boom, done. So they don't have to worry about picking books. It's all just in that show bag, and they can
Does each kid in the same family get a bag, or do they get one bag per family?
No, Pat, they've got to learn to share. They're one per family. So that's it. Comics is, sharing is caring, Pat. So, but yeah, we do get that occasionally where it's sort of like, families asking, oh, well, I've got, 3 kids. It's like, well, that's great. This is an important lesson, a life lesson that they can learn.
Right. Yeah.
We're not just about reading; we're about bringing families closer together. So, but it's
good answer.
But it works really well. We also do designate 2 books from the selection for the kids to actually pick from, so they still have the joy of the opportunity to pick a book for themselves rather than just getting the bags as well. Yeah.
Okay. So the book that they would pick is not one that was already
Correct.
in their bag.
That's right. So this year we made like the kids' picks were the Justice League book and the Lumberjanes book. And so they could choose one of each of those, and then their family would get one of the kids' packs. So in the end, they're potentially walking away with 12 comics basically to read amongst the family, and then they can still go upstairs and have a look at the stuff that we sort of designate, I guess the open books to everybody. And inevitably they'll probably get a bunch then as well. So that definitely skews our numbers quite a lot because we have quite a few of those, those packs. We gave out 300 of those show bags this year. So, yeah.
Oh, wow.
That's a large chunk of our numbers right there. But people really appreciate that as well. Like, being able to come in and, every other store is so crazy, and it's crazy for us as well. But our area that we've designated for the kids' books is a lot more open, and at least, it's again sort of trying to provide a space that is, welcoming to people and not just like crazy hectic, I guess. So, yeah.
Sure, that's such a tough balance to walk on Free Comic Book Day.
It's near impossible, and we've only been able to do it, being in the store space that we've got. We're very fortunate because we have a lot of room. Not every store is going to have that opportunity, but it would be, even if we were in a smaller store like we were when we first opened, it's still something that we would be very mindful of and try to kind of provide, I guess, that quiet space almost for families, because it can be somewhat daunting, seeing all these people in costume and so many people in a small space. So that's always been important to us to keep that in mind on the day.
I'm glad you mentioned costumes because I have stuff about that. But my last question about the books is: do you order all of the 50 odd books are available, or do you pick and choose what you're going to carry?
We pick and choose, Patrick. Again, from previous years where it was like, oh, we've got to get everything. Now it's like there's selections in there that if we're like you guys, I'm sure you've commented on it before. If we're not stocking that book for the shelf or have plans to stock that book for the shelf, there's no reason why we should have it as a promotional item to give away.
That is exactly our philosophy.
It costs us money to actually do it. So it's absolutely pointless. So we're now these days we would much prefer to put an extra 50 copies into the Amazing Spider-Man one rather than ordering 50 copies of the the Comic Defense Fund one, or the kind of those obscure ones, the Overshoot Guide.
Yeah, it seems like the kid anthology ones are the ones that we think are great and that the kids don't.
Yeah, it's always a tough choice, and that's kind of like with our show bags, that sort of takes that. I mean, we're committing to a lot more of those books than we would if we didn't have the show bags, for sure, but it also takes the hassle out of kind of trying to pick what the numbers would be for actual interest in those books as well. So, I guess we're kind of hedging our bets in the sense that the books that we include in the kids pack, there might be books amongst that stuff that kids have absolutely no interest in, but they are designated a kids book. So, it feels, it's kind of like, well, hey, it just adds to the number, and the more that you can kind of, to give kids, well, it's, sometimes that's the more impressive thing than the actual books themselves, right? So.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. Okay, now, your costume contest. I looked at all the entries on the Facebook page this year, and they're so great.
There are.
There's no way to choose. Like, I couldn't even pick up, like, Hazel and Cha-Cha from Umbrella Academy. It was so great.
It's pretty great.
The Ant-Man with the giant helmet. Yes. Oh, man, there's so many really well done, really, like, detailed homemade costumes. It's amazing.
Yeah, we're
I don't envy, like, having to pick a winner, and I know you're doing it via Facebook likes, I think.
Yeah, so what we do to try to, it's like effectively, I guess, it's a little bit of a popularity contest initially, because that's how we get 5 finalists by having people get the most votes, being the most likes, and then from those finalists, basically everyone here in the store, staff wise, gets to vote on their favorite. So it's kind of like 2 levels, I guess, and then from that second lot of voting from the staff, we come up with the people that are our first, second, and third sort of places for for the adult division and for the kids division. So, but it's not always easy.
Yeah, man, I tell you, there's really great ones. What we normally do, which I think is kind of a cop out, is we just basically assign every picture a number, then pull it out of a hat, so everybody has an equal chance, and that way nobody can feel bad about losing because everybody had the same opportunity.
We as much as we try to keep it sort of fun and games and everything like that, people do still complain about our way of coming to the finalists, that it's someone that doesn't have a great costume can still potentially get 100 likes because they have a network of friends they can share it with, which it is a little bit unfair, but we do hence the reason we have the second level.
But it still doesn't make them win; it gets them into the final, so it's okay.
Yeah. So but I think your ways that is good as well, because it does take out that feeling left out element.
Well, as with everything, we learned to do it that way, because initially we would try to we would only have costume contests when we had like a creator, and we're like, oh, the creator's going to pick the winner. Then we realized no creator wants that responsibility. They don't want to be the one, because they'll pick one person and then they'll have 20 people that hate them.
Yeah, they just lost all these fans.
Exactly. Well done. Good job on your free comic book day.
And on yours as well.
Thanks. It's such a weird thing, because we estimate that of the number of people that came by, we only had about 30% of them spend money. But those 30% spent a ton of money, which was great. And it's also hard to say, like, if you get a family of 5 and they make a purchase, that's one purchase for 5 people, so the numbers don't necessarily add up right. So it's not an equal comparison to make. So you are very active on the Final Order Cutoff group on the Facebooks, and I'm a member of that, but I'm also a member of the Comics Pro group in Facebook, and you guys are not Comics Pro members.
I think. Well,
that's
technically,
correct?
I think we are, because we do take part in local comic shop day, which you have to be a member of, I guess.
Yeah. Okay.
We pay that, but we're just not active. We're just not active in that front on that end, I guess.
Oh, okay. Because I was going to say that I feel like the Comic Pro Facebook group is the more productive of the two, and I think that Final Order Cutoff, which you also get a ton of publishers jumping in. And man, I got to tell you, I hate Facebook. That's not true. There's no faith at all. I have no faith in them. I hate Facebook's new algorithm thing where I keep getting notifications like, oh, you have, and it's bullshit. It just says, oh, there's new activity in this. Like, no, there isn't. It's the same 3 things. Stop telling me something happened 3 minutes ago when it didn't.
Trying to distract us. That is for sure.
And it's the same promotional people from the same companies who post most of the time, and I'm more interested in the retailer discussion. There was a pretty great discussion going on in the Comics Pro group about the just announced returnability of both the Superman Year One and
the other one.
Leviathan.
Yeah.
Event Leviathan, yeah. And it turns out that there was an initial mistake that DC made, like the books that they're matched to are swapped, but then it was, which covers is it? And it's like, oh, you only have to match to the A cover of Batman Damned #2, not the A and B covers, which makes it a lot easier. How often do you guys actually get to, without really stretching, buy into one of those deep discounts that Marvel does?
Rarely. Marvel and obviously does it quite frequently. A lot of the times, the books that that we have to meet the sales on are books that we're already ordering a lot of copies of. So a lot of the times we can't really take advantage of it. Occasionally it does come up, but it's not something that we are super active on sort of checking out, because I mean the other thing that I guess that's added onto our end of cost wise is despite getting the extra copies for a cheaper price, that's fantastic, but we're also paying extra cost in freight to get the items out here. So that's we're basically we're paying $7 a kilo pretty much as a general sort of rule to get books out here on a weekly basis. And if you aren't absolutely sure that we're going to be able to do something with those books at the end of the day, then it's almost not really sort of worth the while. So it's a bit unfortunate, but
oh man, that's a whole thing I hadn't even considered. Yeah.
Yeah, but we do like sort of the idea that it is helping stores kind of stateside is probably doing a lot more for those books, which is great. If it affords the opportunity to stores to have more of copies of those and to take a bit of a gamble with less financial risk, then I mean that's a positive. But at the same time, you don't want hundreds and hundreds of copies of books of one book just sitting on the shelf. I think you guys were talking about your Marvel Legacy #1s still floating around last week. So I mean we've still got a few. Like we're almost through ours, and that was one that we did take up the discount on, and it did well for a point, and then it just went cold, and then it has been a slow seller for us off the shelf since. And I think now almost 2 years later we're finally sort of getting through them all. But yeah, I mean that's probably longer than we'd really want to have a book sort of
on the shelf. Yeah, definitely. Well, all right. Is there anything that you want to bring up that we haven't talked about yet?
I don't know. I think you and I were talking about public events.
Yes, thank you. Yes, we were.
And
perfect. Thank you. That's an excellent segue, because I forgot about this. Luckily, I've had a couple days to calm down, but not calm down. But we had the Little Girls release party event this past Monday, where we had the creators who were on this very podcast, Nicholas Afleja and Sarah Delane, and two local bands, Catchy the Band and Gentle Heat. And it was a Monday night. I get that. And these are two creators that people most likely have never heard of. And it's also a debut graphic novel that was like 177 pages. So there's a lot of strikes against it as far as it being an event. But at the same time, it wasn't just a signing, it was a party where, we had beer and snacks and we had two different bands playing. So you could come out and hang out. And we knew that we had an uphill battle for this. So we had a banner in the front window, and we had signs all around the store, and we had call-out signs on the front counter. We also had the interview with them on the podcast, and this was an idea that somebody suggested to us a couple years ago, that if you do an interview with somebody you're going to have at the store, it gives people time to hear it and be excited for them and maybe get more people there. So we had them both on. And we also gave out flyers to people that came to Free Comic Book Day, and we printed up 600 flyers. It was 4 per sheet. I don't know. We 600 or more flyers, and we gave them all out. And I even had said on that podcast, if there's anything we've learned from promoting a future event on Free Comic Book Day, it's that it doesn't work. And like I said, we gave out like 600 of these flyers, and we got 4 regulars to come to this event. Everybody else who was there was either a friend of the band or the bands themselves, because each band had like 5 4 or 5 members. Luckily, a lot of the band members bought the book. But we got 4 people to come to this. And that was really disheartening. And again, it was a Monday. But it started at 7 o'clock, so it didn't go late. Like we were out of there by, like, the store was put back together, and we went out to dinner with them at like 10:30. So it did not go late for people at all. And it's just very disappointing to see that people just don't care about events. But I was talking to you about that, I think Tuesday, or our Tuesday, your Wednesday.
Yeah.
And you had said, don't worry, it's not just you.
Yeah. I mean, I think, 2 things definitely we need to point out is that, we're not having a shot at our, regular customers by any stretch, and that it's, this is a thing that is affecting probably stores everywhere around the world that are actually trying to engage with their customer base. Is that it feels like, to us, what we've seen in the last 12 to 18 months is that it's getting so much harder to get people excited to actually come into the store for something that isn't, Free Comic Book Day, basically.
Yeah.
DC obviously have their theme days with Batman Day and whatnot, and most recently, I guess we had Hellboy Day as well.
Did that work for you? We ignored that entirely. Did that work for you?
I wasn't here on the day, but it seemed like it did relatively okay. But because I'm previously a pretty big Hellboy collector and fan myself, I had a bunch of props and things that I could kind of bring.
Oh,
in,
nice.
Yeah. So so at least we had a little bit more, I guess, on offer. For people to kind of check out. Besides just having the free stuff to give away, because I mean, as awesome as it is, like, Dark Horse did do a good job in providing a range of stuff that we could make a nice little kind of show bag out of. Was about 5 items or so, which was pretty cool. And being that it was coming out as well around the time of the film, we think there'd be a bit of a correlation. But then the film tanked, and perhaps it didn't do sort of so well. But the actual day for us was relatively okay. We did a little sale on Dark Horse books as well, and it seemed like people did sort of come out, but it felt like we had to really sort of like amp that up to get people kind of keen. And again, that was on a Saturday, which obviously weekdays do sort of tend to work against people. But when we first opened, almost 9 years ago, I'm not sure about you guys, but it definitely felt like there was a want from the customer, the wider comic book community to engage with a hub. People were looking for a place that they could sort of to hang out and talk comics and share comics they love and everything like that for the art form. And it just feels like that has, I don't know if it's the industry or what, but it just feels like that's been sort of just beaten out of people almost in this 9 years, where now it's people are they're always too busy. There's always something on. You just want to get home straight after work. So if you do an event on a weekday, it is quite difficult. And then on the weekends, people are like, well, I'm already doing something, so unless I was coming into the store already, I might not make a special effort to go in just for this one thing. And it's happening sort of more and more, and it's kind of like you guys, like not doing Hellboy Day, like we're more inclined as well. These things kind of come up. Like we didn't really get behind the Walking Dead Day that happened last year, and we're kind of thankful for it, because it wasn't something that people kind of came in expecting us to do. So,
yeah, we did very little for it, and it did okay.
Yeah,
but we barely did anything. Like, we didn't have any artists doing zombie sketches or anything like that.
Yeah, and I guess as well, like, and I'm sure you guys are in the same boat, that there's a limitation on what stores can kind of provide for these events as well. So we traditionally we do fall back on local artists and do sketches and whatnot, which is amazing and really awesome. But it just feels like that's kind of these days. Like, we could just have sketch days if we wanted to, really, and not have them associated with anything, and we'd probably have the same amount of people showing up. And
that's a good idea.
Yeah, I mean, like it'd be fantastic, but it is, it's just one of these.
But yeah, you're right. Every Batman Day we have artists. Wonder Woman Day we have artists. Local Comic Book Day we try to have artists. I mean, that's our go-to, because when we do things like we're going to have women creators in all day, the turnout is very spotty.
Yeah, it's not enough just to have the product to kind of promote. So it's and from our angle, it's like we want to do something different. We don't want it to feel exactly the same. But now that we've had what is it, 5 Batman days now? It's like that day we're struggling.
Yeah, you're right. It's been 5. Yeah.
Yeah, and we're struggling to bring anything new to that, and
when they tried to make it fun and make it Harley Quinn taking it over, that day did significantly less for us.
Yes,
because people don't care about Harley Quinn as much as Batman.
No,
we should, because we called it Harley Quinn Day. We should have called it Batman Day with special guest star Harley Quinn.
Yeah, I think we sort of split it like that as well, because it just didn't feel like it was something that was going to kind of grab the attention as much, despite the popularity of the character in the wider sort of audience. Much like the Avengers films. People love those movies, but they don't necessarily come into comic book stores looking for stuff associated with them. So
Harley Quinn. We are club only for that book. We do not even stock it for the shelf.
Wow, that's amazing. It's pretty nuts. We're down to, I think, a couple of copies on the shelf now, and the Frank Cho variant covers, we do get a few of those for the shelf. They do sell well, but I think they are selling to people that just get Frank Cho art, not necessarily collecting Harley Quinn as such.
Sure.
Yeah. But it's so interesting, that it felt like there was a point in time where this was such a big deal for people, and people were really looking for it, and we sort of followed. We saw you guys in the States sort of doing what you were doing. We've never had a band playing, but that's something we've absolutely wanted to do in the past. And to see you guys put on this show for everybody the other day, and to hear that sort of turn up, it's like, again, it's not obviously putting the onus on the customer, but it is just so disheartening that it just feels like we're at that point in our customer retailer relationship that it's just maybe something that the market's not asking for as much.
Yeah, I think with the internet being the thing that connects people from all over the world, like it's connecting you and I right now, people, I guess, don't see the creators as special as someone they've got to see in person. It's just like they feel like they know them already from how close they are if they follow their Instagram or their Twitter or whatever. Or maybe it's also that these people have other groups that they're part of online where they get this catharsis out with talking about their comics or their fandom, where they don't need to get it from us anymore. Because as you know, like, we put conversation in our name because that's what we thought was going to be a big facet, and it isn't as much. And I think that it's just times are changing. And I remember when we opened, we heard that Brian Hibbs from Comics Experience had said he really doesn't do events anymore because they don't do anything for him. And we thought we would never want to not do events. Yeah. And now we're like, yeah, I totally get it. But on the other hand, now he's doing a bunch of events every month because he's found a way to monetize them and make it worth his while.
Yeah. Brian knows his stuff.
Yeah, that's true.
We got to get him back on this podcast so we can find out how to make that happen. Because it is just, it's like you said, it's just that kind of disheartening feeling of like, why would we put time and effort and money into these things when at the end of the day, we're only going to get sort of a handful of people sort of showing up. I think sales are obviously are definitely important, but it's more for us, and I'm sure it is for you guys as well. It's more just about people, what you thought was a good idea, having enjoying that good idea, and giving them the opportunity to do that, and to see that sort of be squandered, is not the best, but we're right there with you for that, and we're trying to do what we can to think of a different way to approach it. So perhaps, maybe we'll have to send an email out to Brian perhaps and get his feedback.
Well, speaking of people who have generously donated their time to this podcast, that includes you. I know you have a store to open, so I'm going to let you get to it. And even though we didn't even start talking about speculators, which it's a good thing we didn't. It's a good thing we didn't for our own sanity.
Yeah, we probably would have gone hard on that one, I reckon. Yeah,
yeah, right. Mitchell, thank you for everything you do in the industry. Thank you for just being there and for understanding this industry the way that we do. And it makes us feel like we're not in this alone. So thanks for being on this podcast. Thank you for All-Star in general. And thanks for listening.
And keep reading comics.
This has been Contest of Challengers. Thanks for listening. Keep reading comics. Challengers is located at 1845 Northwestern Avenue in the Bucktown neighborhood of Chicago. 773-278-0155. Keep up to date with new releases and events at challengerscomics.com. Like Challengers Comics on Facebook, follow @Challengers on Twitter, and help fund this podcast at patreon.com/challengers.